Hi everyone, this is Kat of Catalyst Holistic Life Coaching, bringing your life in alignment with you. I'm here today to do your reading for this new lunar cycle in Libra. The new moon actually happened last week on Friday or Saturday, depending on where you are living. And so we are in the midst of Libra season, and now this week we are about to move into Scorpio season on the 23rd, I believe. Yes, 23rd of October. So we're kind of starting this new lunar cycle of looking into expanding out more into our partnerships, whether that be romantic, work related, different things like that. And now, as we move into the Scorpio aspect, we may have some kind of triggering things that come up surrounding these relationships, or maybe old relationship patterns that we used to hold on to. So it's a very interesting time too, because we're also a Mercury retrograde in Scorpio as well, but it will be moving back into Libra here in the next few days, and it will be there until November 3rd, which is election day. And I have some interesting theories about what I think is going to kind of happen around that idea, but I'm going to write a separate article about that. I won't get into it too much today. So this is just a general reading for the collective. It may or may not resonate with you today, but just as a general overall message for the new moon in Libra card, a new romantic cycle begins. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that maybe a new romance is coming into your life. Maybe it is. It kind of depends on which part of your chart the moon is falling in. But this could also just mean kind of like a new romance with yourself, a new romance with life, a new romance with your work. Something that is new and passionate, that you are kind of starting to find this balance outside of yourself, where an old cycle is getting left behind that was maybe kind of draining your energy, and now you're starting to kind of feel in love with life again. So however that resonates for you. So I'm working with the Muse Tarot as well as our Moonology, and then we have quite a few goddess energies that wanted to show up from the Goddess Guidance Oracle cards. So wherever you're at, whenever you're watching this, just remember that this is a message that will carry through for the next 6 months until we have the full moon in Libra during Aries season. So whenever you see this, it may be a time to reflect. It may be something that hasn't quite come up yet, or maybe it's something that's already in the works for you. So let's go ahead and get started. So beginning with the tarot, we have the Devil. So this has to do with our strings, our attachments to what is keeping us in a lower vibration. What is keeping us from change? Because we have this butterfly here, we have this big burst of energy, we're wanting to kind of walk through the door and have some new growth, but we still have these kind of old patterns, these old ideas that are keeping us stuck from evolving. Because we see the Devil even has the wings of transformation, but she's still kind of covered up in sort of the remains of this chrysalis that was binding her before. And so how are you kind of holding on and being tied to the past? How are you not letting yourself kind of have this growth? Maybe, especially with Mercury retrograde being in Scorpio, maybe you're having old patterns of addictions. Maybe you were doing really well on a diet, or something that you've maybe cut out of your life, like alcohol or drugs, certain foods like sugars, video games, things that you know that you have bad patterns with, and maybe you've kind of fallen back into those. Like maybe you've fallen back into a little bit of comfortability because it's familiar, and you're not realizing how it could be holding back your potential. But this is also a warning to be careful of. Again, this is sort of like, this is supposed to be a new romantic cycle, so don't fall into that, belittling yourself, or getting down on yourself basically for maybe diving back into something you didn't want to dive into before, because that kind of just takes away from it. It may just be reappearing because it wasn't fully integrated. Like maybe you were doing it for the wrong reasons, maybe you were doing it for someone else, or your heart wasn't really fully in it. So it's coming up, it's resurfacing to kind of help you question, like, what am I really doing this for? Where is my willpower being placed behind this? Or what is the wounding that I'm doing? Because you can change like what's not, contributing to your healing. But if you don't work on the core wounding that is also holding you there, you may just have that immediate trigger to go back. And it's a constant learning cycle. So again, don't be hard on yourself. And so for the second card in the tarot, yeah, we have the Emperor, which is this kind of fatherly, like structural energy. We are needing to really govern ourselves, father ourselves, give ourselves more structure. So this could be speaking to maybe some of you for a sort of father wounding. Even if you do or do not have your father in your life, whether you had a good or a bad relationship, sometimes there is still wounding that took place when we were children that we may not recognize. And it's not really their fault. They just met us where they could at their time in their life, and they're still teaching us. So we're needing to give ourselves that sort of order around our lives. And again, like maybe that structure, that building block that we didn't have before when we have tried to make this move forward. We're needing just that one last little piece of creating more structure instead of kind of doing something willy-nilly. Like, I feel like this is saying, remember your why and stand strong in your truth. She's really rising above everything else here. These people just kind of going about are looking to her for the structure. And I also see this as like a very big mountain to climb. So there may be backtracks, there may be, big ascents, but it's all a journey. So just remember like where you're at, and this is a new cycle. This is a new way to kind of re-fall in love with yourself. So if maybe you're lacking some masculine like energy in your life, this doesn't necessarily mean searching for it in another person, but we, even as women or men, need to give ourselves that masculine energy sometimes, that structure, that order, that diligence, and what's a good word I'm looking for? That action and repetition, just something that is able to give us an anchor, like a base to come back to, so we know like how we're moving along. Okay, so that's just the kind of general overall energy. We'll see what comes up in the moon card. So the first card represents what is rising up in the collective, like what is starting to be triggered by this new moon, like what is this new moon kind of showing to us. So we have the full moon in Cancer. A personal issue reaches resolution. So again, with Cancer also representing the mother, I do kind of see maybe some parental wounding that may be deeper down that is triggering a lot of these addiction patterns that we're trying to escape. And they're not always aware of it, and it's not always super obvious when our parents haven't actually been like abusive to us, but just certain questions of like self-worth or values. Like there's very interesting things that can happen when we're children and we don't get met where we need because we're individuals, and our parents didn't know a lot of the things, at least in my generation, that we do now. It's very few and far between. And now that we're starting to become more aware of this, we're having to work not only through our own patterns, but through our ancestral patterns. So I really see that too with this kind of like mountain to climb and these deep roots. But what's rising up, these challenges that are coming up that are challenging your resolve towards these things, is because it is coming to a resolution. You are seeing the patterns, you are noticing it more of why you are doing these things. And that's just a step in and of itself, is the awareness that is coming from this experience. The more aware you are, the more you can start to shift and change your reality. It doesn't define you. you can change it however you need to. With this being the full moon in Cancer, this really says to me also emotions, since it is kind of like the water sign. So we're really starting to work through these emotional patterns that have been holding us back. And sometimes we may not fully be aware, like they're very much in the subconscious. So when we start to cut these patterns of addictions to like drugs or alcohol, these might start to come more to the surface. And that might be kind of why we fell back in. Maybe we've been having really strong emotions, or perhaps, again, it's just that kind of comfortability. Like this, Cancer is very much about the comfort and the home and what feels good and familiar. So if there's something that's kind of, you're starting to get like just more comfortable again, and you don't feel like you're really progressing like you were before, just recheck back in and see, is this really aligning with my truth? Am I really resolving the things that I need to, or am I kind of just placating myself again? Okay, so the second card represents what is the main message of this new moon for the collective. So we have the opposing force, new moon in Aries. It's time to take action. So it's time to, like take that masculine fire, take that energy, and really shift it this time. And not doing it half-assed, not doing it just because, we're like, oh, like, it's the thing to do. Everyone else is doing it. Whatever your reasoning might have been in the first place, you need to come to your truth and why you are doing it for you. The word strongly, coming to your why, is what I'm hearing. And so, with that Aries energy, like really charging forward and being very self-assured and taking action where that is needed. It may not, you may have periods of like resting or actually taking action, but I feel like the action isn't really going to come until you actually see your end goal, like your pursuit, why you really want to move forward in this area. Okay, and so then the last card represents the final outcome of this cycle, which could either mean when we move into the next lunar cycle, or at the 6 months when we come to the full moon in Libra. So it's saying the waxing moon, what do you need to release? So, and it's winter time, so maybe this is something that you really need to work through this like season. And yeah, the full moon in Libra happens in close to springtime. So this could be really saying that is going to be this next 6-month period as we move into winter, but it'll maybe start to become more clear on the next waning moon, which will be probably more close to when it's snowing as we come to the new moon in Scorpio. But yeah, how do you really need to release these attachments? Like, how are you really ready to step forward, take that action, and just release yourself from this kind of burden? How are you going to meet and find your personal resolution? And again, like the Libra, a new romantic cycle, this can also just have to do with finding more balance in yourself, like your emotional balance. Your Libra is also an air sign, so it could be this mental balance that you're needing. Your mental, emotional body could be at war with each other because you know what you want, but you haven't dealt with these emotions. And so you may really come to this time of being ready to release, and you might realize maybe you did take the steps to kind of release it, but you didn't really shift your environment. That could also have another factor to do with this. Maybe you're still around people or things that are, not really helping you along. Although I will say, don't rely on outside sources to help you shift this energy. This is something that has to happen within. But if you know there's something that's not going to support you, and you just keep kind of going out, like say you're trying to quit drinking and you just keep going out to bars, like you're not going to find that resolve. You're going to be so tempted, and devil's all about temptation as well, and not listening to your own inner guidance. You're just kind of not escaping that reality, where instead, if you could shift it, like, where would you rather spend more time where you're like really feeling in love with yourself? Okay. So, all right. So we've got a few different goddess guides. So this could be just different messages for everyone. These are just energies that you can maybe call upon to help you as you go through this big shift. So the first goddess we have is Nematona of the sacred space. Create an altar or visit a power place to connect with the divine. So if you've never created an altar before, I mean, it can pretty much be anything, like whether you're Christian or practice more Buddhist qualities or Hindu, or you just like to have some sort of like sacred space for yourself that really amplifies like your energy. You can just place your own belongings, like things that are good for you, like crystals or plants or water, or it can be really anything, but this is a good way to kind of get in your creative place, even with candles, and really start to connect more with yourself. It doesn't necessarily have to mean connecting with the divine if that is not a part of your practice, but connecting with more of your higher self, which is always present. It's just your if you imagined like your best version of yourself, how would that person be acting, or what would that person be telling you to do? Or even just working with like childhood wounding, you can use this as a place to like kind of connect more with these different aspects of yourself that have had this wounding, and you can start to learn and understand a lot more of what you're needing from this space. Okay, so the next goddess we have is Hathor of receptivity. Sorry, there's a little bit of shine on the cards here. Allow yourself to receive. This will increase your intuition, energy, and ability to give to others. This was something that I had for my students this week as well. Our main theme was around collaboration. How are we going to be more open to receiving help from others? So this could be a part of that new romantic cycle, is invite in people that are going to help you. A great example, like me shifting into a workplace that I really enjoy, that I'm really passionate about, I really feel welcomed by my coworkers, and this shifting of just like really powerful people. And I've even just felt it in other relationships. So the more you shift to being like receptive to the fact that you are deserving of love, you are deserving of anything that comes to you, the outside world will respond and show that to you. The outside world is just responding to what's going on to the inner world. So that's, again, another reason to create your sacred time for yourself, honor yourself, and then be receptive to what comes, whatever gifts and abundance and prosperity come your way. Okay. All right. The next goddess we have is Freya of being bold. Unleash your adventurous side, take risks, and be daring. Oh, and this is interesting. I completely forgot to talk about the little meditation that I did beforehand. I sometimes do them, not always. But I saw a little kind of meditation beforehand, and now it makes sense seeing this card. I saw just sort of like this crystalline structure like taking form, and I heard this sort of like battle cry, almost like a bird, but I couldn't make sense of it because it was just this really interesting like bird sound. And now what I think it really is, I think it was a Valkyrie, and just this kind of crystalline structure, if you see it back here. Now this is kind of making sense also with this like Aries energy, as well as the Emperor structure, which this Emperor is also represented as Aries, is taking that action. The crystalline structure I saw as things are taking form, things are taking shape as we start to shift. So don't be afraid to take your risks if you're being taken out of your comfort zone. Don't go back to being placated. Don't go back to being comfortable. Make yourself be uncomfortable. So really commanding your own life. So maybe Valkyries or crystals. I also saw a rose in the vision too. So those could be some sort of symbols or guides that could be coming forward. Okay, so the next goddess we have is Irene of Peace. There's no need to worry. Everything is working out beautifully. So even though it's uncomfortable, like, you don't have to be worried, about this release as well. Like, as you start to cut these things, really see how it makes you feel when you start releasing these burdens. Like, do you feel more sense of peace, or do you feel more sense of anxiety? Really notice, like, as you start to spend more time sitting with yourself, understanding your own energy, you'll get to get a better sense of what's actually disrupting you. Because sometimes we're just so comfortable with having our energy kind of sucked away from us that we don't realize how drained we are constantly. And when we start to take a more deeper look and realize, oh, this isn't really serving me anymore, then we can start to really be okay with, like, all right, I'm ready to release this. I'm ready to let this go. All right, and so our last goddess we have is Vesta of the home. Your household situation is improving either through a move or a healthy change in the occupants. So again, seeing this kind of mother-father energy, maybe you're starting to invite a different way or a different sort of energy into your home. And whether maybe you are struggling with, like, personal relationships, you're going to be more at home with yourself is something that I'm hearing. Like, because Cancer is also all about the home, and you're going to kind of have just this so much support with, like, the mother-father energy within your own being, that you're just going to create something so much more loving and nurturing. And whether that's, changing the environment, like I said, of, like, needing to release, like, maybe you're living with people that are just, like, feeding into this negative energy, and you feel obligated towards them, whether it is your parents, maybe you're in some sort of parental relationship that is draining you more, like you're helping them out in some way, and it's maybe draining you more than it is, like, nurturing you, because now you're becoming the parent, and that's just not okay. So remembering your boundaries, like the Emperor is really about boundaries as well. And so I feel like that's a message for some of you. But this could also, again, either be the change in the occupants, or you're moving, or you are just shifting the energy in your home. And that can also mean your inner home as well. All right. Okay. I think that is everything I have for you. I find that really funny that I just completely forgot about this crystalline thing, but now it very much makes sense with, I saw the mountains and the crystals, and now that I feel like the word that first popped into my head was war cry, which, Freya, if you know her story a little bit, she was definitely kind of a warrior goddess. And so hearing that war cry too, now thinking of Valkyries, it makes a lot of sense. So accepting the war cry, the battle cry, Valkyries, crystals, again, like the rose, mountains, like those could all be symbols that are, or messages, synchronicities that could be popping up for you during this cycle. All right, so thank you so much for tuning in wherever you are. I wish you so much growth and understanding during this lunar cycle, and remember to be gentle with yourselves. If you really liked this video, feel free to comment below, subscribe, maybe share with someone. I love to hear your stories or connection with these readings. And also, I have a bunch of Cash Apps linked below for if you'd like to leave a tip or donate to the business or buy me a tea, whatever you like. I always appreciate any sort of energy exchange. And I believe that is what I will leave you with. So have a great lunar cycle, and we will see you next time for the next reading. Thank you so much. Bye.